Welcome to Wayne's World. Very happy you're with us today. I'm Wayne Dawson. When you find out you have a life-threatening illness like cancer, you have a million emotions all at once. You're scared, sad, angry, and just overwhelmed. Sometimes it's hard to keep your head on straight. And that's where my next guest comes in. Ed Suszkowski is a patient experience volunteer with University Hospitals. His wife, Norine, passed away from ovarian cancer, so he's been in that seat. Now he is honoring her memory by helping others navigate this very difficult time. And by year's end, he'll be able to say he has walked through the doorway of 18,000 patients. Ed, first of all, thank you for joining me. Appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me, Wayne. I appreciate it.
18,000 patients, my goodness, it's a lot.
It seems like I've talked to 100 people. It just is the most wonderful thing, and this is what my wife would be wanting me to do. She was that type of a person, and I started and did it for like 2 weeks, and I was coming home one day and got caught at a light on Cedar Road, and I was sitting at the light waiting for it to change, and I felt healing in my heart. And it's been just an amazing thing since. It's good to help so many people when you can help them.
Let's talk about your wife, Norine.
Okay.
She died back with 2009, you said?
Yeah, she was diagnosed in 1998 with uterine cancer. And the doctor told me the good news is if it's uterine cancer and it hasn't gone outside the uterus, we removed the uterus and you have nothing more to do, no chemo, no radiation. Unfortunately, during the surgery, they found she also had ovarian cancer. And that's when it was difficult. We went through 6 months of chemotherapy. And after the chemotherapy, we found that she was now cancer-free. There's a scale they use for ovarian cancer. It's called a CTA, I believe. 0 to 35 is the normal range. She was 8, 11, everything was wonderful. So we started living our lives again.
How long was she considered cancer-free?
Well, we would have to go every month to start to get a test for her to make sure her CA-125 was still within the 0 to 35 range. After we went through a number of months like that, we went to 3 months, and that worked really well. We were looking forward to going to 6 months, and the last test that we went through, I got home from work before she did, and I went and got the mail, and her results were in the mail, and her reading was 221.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember sliding down onto the floor on the counters, wondering how am I going to tell her this when she comes home? What are you going to say?
How did you tell her?
Norine was pretty straight up. I told her we had the results and there was bad news, and you could say she was affected immediately, and we cried. I mean, what do you do?
How long did she last after that?
Well, when I got this notice in the mail and I read it, she wasn't home yet. And I have a room, a sunroom. It's got all big windows and everything. And I went out there and I sat down and I had a talk with God. And I said, God, I'm not ready for this. I need more time. I'll devote my life to cancer patients. God gave me 9 more years.
You had 9 more years with her?
God gave me 9 more years. And after she did pass away in 2016, I hadn't gone back to the hospital to do anything yet. Now, in the meantime, while she was sick, I got very close to God by getting involved with my church. Holy Angels Church on 306 in Bainbridge.
Your faith pulled you through?
Say again?
Your faith pulled you through?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to the 7 a.m. Mass on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I became a Mass coordinator for the noon Mass on Sundays, and I actually coordinated that Mass for 20 years before COVID came.
Norine, obviously the love of your life, there's no doubt about that, huh?
She was an incredible person. I came home from the military, and my 2 friends were still in Cleveland State, and they said to me, Ed, we go downtown on the weekends to a college bar called the Plato. I think it was on 21st and Payne. You should come with us. So I went with them. It was the second week, and we were down there. 3 girls walked in, and they sat down with us.
And she was one of them, huh?
She was, and she sat right here. And we talked, we danced, we drank 3-2 beer, if you remember what that was, all night long. And it was about 2 hours after meeting her that I knew this is the girl I'm going to marry.
You still miss her?
You never stop missing them, ever. I wake up in the middle of the night and I look over thinking I'm going to see her laying next to me in bed, and I see the dog.
My gosh. Talk about how you got started with UH on this mission that you have been on since her passing.
Well, when I was working with the priest, trying to do as much as I could for the church, because I wanted to be as close to God as I could, I started doing funeral masses with them. I would coordinate the funeral masses, Father Dan Schlegel. And when you coordinate a funeral mass, you have to get there early and make sure you know everything that's going to happen in this mass, because little Johnny's going to carry the cross, and Susie's going to give the first reading, and they're probably not even members of your church, so they don't know what to do. So you have to get there early, and you have to read every piece of paper on the counter to know what's going to happen. So I haven't gone back to do what I told God I would do yet.
Okay.
So I'm seeing what's going to happen with this funeral, and I pick up a piece of paper, and the paper reads, "Healing from the loss of a loved one does not come with the passage of time. Healing from the loss of a loved one comes from what you do with the time."
Okay.
And I got chills.
That spurred you on, right?
That's God telling me you're not living up to your side of the bargain. So the next week, I went down to the hospital. I sat everyone down, and I told everyone I wanted to get involved with the hospital. I started with a group, we call it PFAC, it's the Patient and Family Advisory Council. And I worked that for the better part of a year. And I didn't feel like I was close enough to the patients. You didn't necessarily see patients if you were with PFAC. Doctors and nurses would come in front of us, tell us what they were trying to do, and we would give them suggestions on what to do. To give you an example, when they built Seidman Cancer Center in 2009, they actually called a lot of us in to sit down with the engineers to say, what should this look like?
Interesting, okay.
And we said, the big window, we said, a bed, a couch that will turn into a bed, single family,
For the loved ones.
single family rooms,
Yeah.
and they actually listened to us. And that, if you go to Seidman today, you'll see that. It's a beautiful place. So I just wanted to have more action with the patients to feel like I was doing what I knew Norine would want me to do.
Okay.
So they thought that was a really good idea, and I wrote a little program, and I started January 1st, 2016, and I've been seeing cancer patients ever since.
Okay, how does that work? How do you approach the patients? And you do it at home, at their homes, or in the hospital? How does that whole thing
You
work?
can't do it at home because you can't have any patient information at home.
Okay.
I go to the hospital and I get the patient charts, and I look at, who did I see last time, who here I didn't see, who is the sickest, who do I feel like that's the person I should see. And I can usually see 6 to 8, 9 patients, so I list what I want to do.
What's your approach?
To which ones I want to see?
No, when you enter a room, when you're dealing with a patient who's dealing with cancer, what's your approach when you walk in the room?
I knock on the door, I come in, you have no idea what's on the other side of the door.
They don't even know you're coming, right?
No, oh no. You clean your hands, you always clean your hands.
Right.
And I tell, my name is Ed, I'm with a group here at the hospital known as the Patient and Family Advisory Council. We're pretty much patient advocates. The hospital wants you to have the best experience you can have while you're here with us. So they use people like me to come in, talk with the patients and family members, answer any questions you might have that I can answer.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some things that'll be helpful for you while you're here. All of us who do this have our own personal cancer experience. We either had cancer or we cared for somebody we loved who had cancer.
That's incredible.
And when you say that, the whole facial expression changes and you become their friend.
And you've done this almost 18,000 times. My
Yes, in
goodness.
September I'll probably.
Is there any one story, one experience that sticks out in your mind with a patient?
There are several.
Okay.
Oh, I will call them for the purpose of this, Jack and Mary.
Okay.
So I knocked on the door and I went in, and Mary was the patient. She had pancreatic cancer, and Jack was the husband. And I went in and I went through my routine, and started going through I go through the hospital stay binder, so they know how to navigate the hospital, questions you should ask before you leave, things like that. And I could immediately see that Jack was not strong. He was terribly troubled. Yeah. He wasn't listening. He wasn't asking questions. So I would sit with Jack, and we would talk, and I would try to help him with questions he should ask the doctor so he knew more about his wife's condition, especially before they went home. So they were there for 3 weeks, and the last time I saw them before they went home, his 18-year-old stepdaughter was there, and I got to meet her. Well, one day I come in, and I'm going to go up and see them, and they're gone. So this is great news. They went home. So 1 or 2 weeks later, I'm coming home from the hospital, and I got a call from the nurse manager. And she called me to tell me that Jack and Mary were back. They were on assignment 6. I'm on assignment 4. Okay. And he asked if someone would call me and ask me to call him. He gave me his cell phone number. So I called him, and he asked me if I would come back and help him because he just had all kinds of questions, didn't know what to do. People were saying things to him he didn't understand. The next morning I went back and sat with Jack and Mary.
Do you help him with the emotional part of it as well? Is that something you do as well? You're somebody that may be angry or angry at God or anything
I've had patients, you're not welcome here.
Really?
And and you end up being their best friend.
You end up being their best friend by showing compassion.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious, my goodness gracious. How does it make you feel when you do that? You're saying you're doing God's will, but how does it make you feel inside?
It makes me feel very good. It makes me feel like I'm doing what God wants me to do, and I'm doing what my wife wants me to do. I go to the hospital on Saturdays and Sundays because on Saturdays and Sundays there aren't as many doctors there,
right?
And I can get in to see more patients.
Okay.
Also, there's more family visiting and friends, and I can get more feedback about what's going on with the patient. A lot of times the patient doesn't want to tell you everything, but the family will sure tell you because they know you're going to help. So that works very well. So I don't go to church on Sunday or Saturday. And I talked to my pastor about this, and he said, God doesn't want you here, God wants you there. You go down there.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're doing his will at that point.
Yeah.
Have you ever been contacted after a patient has passed away by family just to say thank you or anything like that?
Well, I'll go back to Jack and Mary. You know, I went back to see him and talk with him, and what I found out listening to them is Mary was not going to survive. She was going to have to go, they were telling him go home with hospice care, and he didn't know what to think about that. And I thought to myself, if Mary and Jack go home together to hospice care, hospice isn't 24 hours at home. Jack is not going to be able to handle that. So I asked the doctors to come out in the hallway. I talked to them, and I convinced them, let's turn this room into a hospice room and have hospice come in here. And while hospice isn't here, at least he has the nurses and the doctors. They agreed. So that's what we did. And again, one day I went there, they're gone. So Mary had passed away. That's the last time I saw them. A year later, I like to bake for the nurses. I take something in at least once a week. So I baked something for the nurses. And I got halfway to the hospital and remembered I forgot it at home. So I turned around to go back and get it. This is another God incident. This made me 40 minutes later to the hospital.
Okay.
So I get there, I don't park, I just leave my car by the valet, run up with his dessert. I come back down, here's Jack sitting in the lobby, crying.
Right.
So I went and sat next to him, and I go, Jack, why are you here? Why are you crying? He said to me, Ed, today is the 1-year anniversary of my wife's death, and I had to come here.
Isn't it amazing, though, you mentioned, the nurses, and they become like family. If you're going through that cancer journey, I mean, they are so important.
I can't say enough about the nursing staff. They are amazing people. Everyone thinks they're this hard. We get so used to this. I see them in the break room crying because they're close to a patient.
How do you deal with it, though? I mean, you're dealing with this, I mean, you dealt with your wife, and you're dealing with individuals who are going through that same struggle. How do you stay strong?
I can honestly tell you, there aren't days where you don't go home and sit down and cry.
I know, I can imagine.
You know, if there's a lot of patients, you know, mostly cancer patients are in their 70s and 80s and whatever, you know, and it's a terrible thing, and you help them as much as you can. But when they're 30 or 40,
and that's the hard part, when they're young, right? When you get a certain age, it is what it is.
I had a 35-year-old girl who had stage 4 melanoma. She was going to celebrate her birthday in the intensive care unit. I went to Giant Eagle, had to make a cake, the whole 9 yards, had her favorite nurse take it up to her, and she passed away.
Oh my gosh.
On the way home, I was crying so hard, I got to Lee and shake her, and I had an accident.
You ever deal with any kids at all? Have you ever had that experience?
No, the kids go to Rainbow.
They go to Rainbow.
Yeah, there are other people in Rainbow that do the same thing.
They do the same thing you do. My goodness. Going to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, he's going to tell us about a very special award he received and explain how you can join his mission to help others. When we will continue. Stay with us. And welcome back to Wayne's World. If you're just joining us, I'm with Ed Suszkowski, who volunteers his time to comfort cancer patients and their families. And Ed, you've been doing it for many, many years. 18,000 patients you will have visited by the end of this year. And I understand that you have received a very special honor for what you do. Talk about that.
We have a volunteer luncheon every year at Lander Haven. And in 2003, before the luncheon was over, I got called up on stage and I received a Lifetime Achievement Award from President Biden. Yeah, shocked.
My goodness gracious. Your wife looking down from heaven, big smile on her face.
She's smiling. She's smiling.
My goodness gracious. Totally surprised, right? Because you don't do what you do for the awards. You don't do that for the notoriety and stuff like that.
You know, if you go in Seidman Cancer Center and ask anybody, the nurse, the doctor, volunteers, why are you here? What brought you here? They will tell you, someone I loved had cancer. And it's like a big family. We talk about the nurses. The nurses are in their 30s. And they marvel me because they have patients' lives and deaths in their hands every day, and they are as sharp as they can be. They're amazing.
You ever get tired, Ray?
Well, I'm tired of doing it or just tired?
Tired of doing it? Tired, period.
No. I love what I do.
Really?
Yeah, I love what I get home and I get tired. When I'm at the hospital rounding with patients, I walk at least 3 miles when I come home.
Every day?
Yeah.
At the hospital?
Yes.
How many patients do you see on average a day?
It depends, you know, I can see, depends on how long you're with a patient in the room. Sometimes the patient needs you to be there longer. I had one patient, I was there 2.5 hours in the room. But normally I'll see 6 to 8 or 9 patients, and then it's time to go home.
When you're dealing with a patient, what are some of the questions they ask you?
They ask you, number one, how they get through this. They ask you questions that they should be asking their doctor. I've had patients who had to go to hospice ask me if I would come back for the hospice meeting and sit with them to make sure they asked all the questions they needed to ask before they went home. I mean, you know, everybody's different. There's all sorts of different things that come out. I talked a little bit about the one patient who told me I wasn't welcome there, and I sat down. And just talking with him, found out, he said he wasn't going to do the chemotherapy. And just talking, well, he thought that if he started doing the chemotherapy and it made him really sick, he could never stop. He had to keep doing the chemotherapy.
So you had to correct that?
Yeah, he corrected it. Then he did the chemotherapy. I mean, it's just whatever you can do to help the patient understand what's going on and make it a little easier for them and their family, that's what you do.
Let's talk about the family members. Have you had an opportunity to talk with them? They're going through it as well, and it's hard on the when you have a loved one going through cancer, it's rough on the family members as well. Have you had a chance to talk to them as well, to minister to them, if you will?
I talk to the family members quite a bit because the family members will tell you a lot of stuff that the patient didn't tell you, that maybe they don't want to tell you. But the family members know you're there to help, and if they let you know everything that's going on, you'll be better able to help the patient with what they really need.
We always talk about what the patients go through. You know what the family goes through. You know what the loved one goes through. Talk about that. How difficult is it, or can it be, for a family member who has a loved one going through this cancer journey?
I had several family members, spouses, that I had to take down to the emergency department because they were that upset and that terrible situation.
So what advice do you give them? What do you tell them? How did you get through it?
It's difficult. Every day is difficult, but you have support with your family members, you have support from your church, you have support with bereavement groups or whatever. I'm currently involved with a bereavement group at Holy Angels Church.
Okay.
And when we started, I used to put out 8 boxes of Kleenex. Now I put out 2. So all those things help, but you need the support of your families. I have many, many, many incredible friends that just helped me with everything. They were always there. My family was always there. I don't know if I would have made it through without Father Dan from Holy Angels. Just, you have to rely on that. You can't do it by yourself.
Have you ever experienced a patient who said, "Why me?"
Yeah, many of them
And
say,
what's
why me?
your response?
We don't know what God has in store for us. God is there for us all the time, and you have to have faith in God and trust that God is doing what God needs done with you. Maybe you're going to have something else in the next life.
You've been doing this for many, many years now.
Going on 11.
There may be some individuals out there who'd like to give you a hand. If they want to do what you do, how can someone help?
We are always looking for volunteers. There's 2,500 volunteers right now in the system. And, if they go to Google University Hospitals, plural, universityhospitals.org/volunteering, all the hospitals come up with all the opportunities there. Rainbow Babies, you can go into and read to the children. You can hold the babies while the mothers are out doing something else. You can just be there for whatever they need. You come to Seidman and do what I do. We have people who push carts with magazines. We have people who bring snacks around. You can work in infusion, getting the people who are there for several hours, getting chemotherapy, bringing them whatever they need. I mean, we have wayfinders where they just hang around the hallways, and if you're lost, they'll take you. They won't tell you. They will take you where you want to go.
As far as you're concerned, giving back has helped you get through the tremendous loss of your
Without
life.
question.
You couldn't have done it without doing what
Without
you
question.
do, huh? You're a brave man. I love you, man. You're
I
doing
love
God's
you
work.
too.
You're doing God's work, without a doubt. All right, appreciate you. If you'd like to help Ed in the volunteer process, we have some information on fox8.com under Seen on TV. Once again, if you'd like to volunteer at University Hospitals, that information is on our website. Ed, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Wayne.
And you are a hero.
Oh.
You are an angel. There's no doubt about it. There's so many people. And I know your wife is looking down with a big smile on her face.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for being with us for Wayne's World. We'll see you again next week. Have a good one.